All right, call the meeting to order at 6:06 PM. Can I have a roll call, please?
James Pearson,
Yes.
Anna Isabel Dos Reis Cuto, Amanda Carlo,
Here.
John Cambio,
Here.
Bradford Mayer,
Here.
Dorothy Jackvoni,
Here.
Cody Rydell is absent, Don Cowart.
Thank you. And is there a motion to recess into executive session at 6:06 PM?
I make a motion that the committee recess into executive session at 6:06 PM to consider matters relating specifically to student matters, RIGL 42465A8 homeschool requests, and approval of executive session minutes from October 9th, 2025, where the following items were discussed. Student matters, homeschool requests, RIGL 42465A8, and approval of executive session minutes from September 11th, 2025, and review of school crisis emergency plans, RIGL 42465A3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, I'd like to reconvene the open session at 6:12 PM. Could everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Superintendent Coward, could you provide the safety notifications for the meeting?
Yes, in case of emergency, we need to vacate this room in this building. You'll exit out into the hallway. You could turn to your left or to your right, head down the hallway, and you'll see exits on your left-hand side or right-hand side, depending on what direction you go.
Thank you. And Member Cambio, could you honor us with a reading of the mission statement?
Yes, sir. The mission of Coventry Public Schools is to inspire, support, and challenge all students in an inclusive community to be critical thinkers, effective communicators, reflective learners, responsible individuals, and global citizens.
Thank you very much. Next item is executive session report. In executive session, 2 votes were taken. The first to approve homeschool requests and the second to approve the executive session minutes of October 9th, 2025. Is there both votes passed unanimously. Is there a motion to seal the records of executive session?
I make a motion that the records of executive session be kept closed pursuant to sections 4246(4) and 4246(5).
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item is approval of minutes for October 9th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from October 9th?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from October 9, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And next item on the agenda is citizens' comments for topics listed on the agenda. If anyone gathered here today would like to speak during public comment, please come up to the podium, state your first and last name and address for the record. And I see no takers in the room. We'll move to Zoom. If anyone on Zoom would like to speak during public comment, please raise your hand and wait to be called on. Going once, going twice. And citizens' comments for topics listed on the agenda is closed. Next item on the agenda is Regional Career and Technical Center Tour. This portion of the meeting will not be broadcast on Zoom. Superintendent Coward, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, so Mr. Chase, I think, has already distributed a packet, like a walking tour packet for you to take with you, because I think he's going to reference that throughout the tour. We've allotted about 30 minutes for this, and this is pretty important because this committee has been together just about a year, and you have been very passionate about our CTE programming and your vision for CTE programming. And this is an important day for you to be able to actually go into those spaces, see the different rooms, listen to Mr. Chase kind of give you a description of what happens in those spaces, what kind of learning takes place, so that when we have our continued conversations, you can visualize what's happening here at the school. Anybody who is here physically who wants to join us for the tour is welcome to join us. Otherwise, we'll be back in about 30 minutes.
Thank you. We'll be back. All right, we're back from our tour. If no one objects, if the next agenda item is CTE post-graduation data presentation. No, I take it back. Does anyone have any questions or comments they'd like to say about the tour we just had? Member Dos Reis Kuto.
I think that the CTE programs that we have are excellent. I think they're doing a really, really good job bringing our children to the trade, students, I should say, to the trades. It's very impressive. And I think that the only thing I ask is that I know that we post but maybe, I don't know, publicize it, do feature stories on Providence Journal, Herald News, Kent County Times, and just like little blurbs, Coventry Reminder, just little feature stories that could potentially get us even more traction and attention to it. So.
It's interesting that you say that because. Am I on? It's interesting you would say that because we will be doing a press release tomorrow. As a matter of fact, the American Culinary Federation came to certify our program, our culinary program. They come every 5 years. And we were voted an exemplary program. We're the only school in New England to have that for 3 years, 3 visits in a row, which is essentially 15 years. The people that come, they travel all around the country all year round. The gentleman that was the lead in this one has been to 17 schools this year all around the country. He's a chef. He's the executive chef for IKEA. And he said that we should be a national model for other schools to follow because of our curriculum and the way the teaching that we do, the leadership that gets instilled in our kids, and the program itself. And he encouraged us to sort of push ourselves out there nationally and have people come and visit us and see what we're doing. So we're actually going to put a press release out there tomorrow as the first kind of shot across the bow for something like that.
And is this press release just Rhode Island only, or is it going to be like surrounding states like Massachusetts, Connecticut?
Well, ideally,
I'm
we
just saying
want people
because we
around the
wanna be
country
a-
to see that we have
Right,
this thing,
that's
but
what
I'll
I
be
mean.
working with Mr. Cowart to kind of figure out how we're going to do that next.
Awesome.
Any other comments or questions? Member Jack Boney.
I loved everything I saw. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And I hope as you move forward, if you have ideas and ways that you think it can be enhanced, I hope you come back and see us and hopefully we can brainstorm and make it even bigger.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Appreciate your support.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yep, Member Mayor.
I just want to say thank you for the tour. And it was, I'm finishing up my 3rd year on the committee. This is the first tour I had. So I really enjoyed it and I think we're going in the right direction. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's an amazing place. I have the best job in the world and we do incredible things for kids. If you're sending your kid anywhere else, you're doing a disservice to your child.
Any other comments or questions? Member Cambio.
Mr. Chase, there is no way that this can be kept a secret. It's unbelievable. And I don't know how much social media we're going to even need to get it out, because if any human being with a half a brain sees what we just saw, there's not a kid I wouldn't tell about this program. And I believe that when our students come out of that program, they're going to be just chomping at the bit to where can I go to? Like, wait till they see what I can do.
Right.
You know, as opposed to going like meekly applying for a job, almost telling the interviewer, you should hope that you hire me.
And companies come here to hire our kids.
Yeah,
They
I
have
believe
signing
it.
days here where they
believe it.
come to our kids rather than our kids having to go there because they have these skills and certifications and licenses in their hands before they even graduate from high school.
You're going to be leaving very hopeful. I appreciate you.
Right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Yep, Member Carlo.
I was really inspired. I was here for the open house. I have a 7th grader. She was inspired by what she saw.
Great.
And it was nice to hear the kids that lined up and talked about their careers. They were so well versed on how to present very well. It was great to see. I mean, it was hard to believe they were high school kids and they spoke like college. So whatever you're doing, it's working. It's amazing. One thing that I had said to Don on the tour was, is it possible to do multiple open houses to really get more people here? I mean, you reached, I think you said 7 districts or 7 towns.
9. Well, I have 9 that filled out applications already. from 9
So
different
that's great. And then I don't know how many towns in total there are, but
And
if
we
we
had-
could do,
over 250 registered families who filled out a Google form that was, 12 questions long, also plus whoever showed up. There's probably 700 people here that.
yeah, I mean, we talk about our budget and our finances all the time. And to get more and more to come to Coventry, not only does that help our state, but it helps us as a town.
Sure.
So I think if maybe in the future you do multiple open houses, it would be a huge success.
Thank you.
So you're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
And I'll just close with, thank you very much for the tour. And member mayor pointed something out that I don't think we've had a tour of the Career and Tech as a school committee in several years. I've lost track of how long. So be prepared to do this every couple of years at least, especially since we're in a 2-year election cycle now. But it was very valuable. And my biggest takeaway is seeing what was new compared to last time I had a tour of some of these rooms and the different programs, and not only seeing what's new, but seeing how well maintained the other programs are that have been in place for quite a while. And I think that speaks volumes to the people running the programs and also the students taking them, because I know they participate in maintaining the environment, especially in culinary and cosmetology, where cleaning and sanitation is part of the curriculum. So thank you for the tour. It's very eye-opening, and I'll just echo the statement. It's really gives me a sense of optimism that our students going through these programs are really getting some of the best experiences possible.
I'd be happy to do a tour every year. You'll never hear me say no to an opportunity to show off how awesome this place is, or how great our teachers are, or how great our kids are. I think just to build on what was said before, when the ACF was here with our culinary kids, they were sitting with our seniors, and one of their recommendations, like you get positive and then you get recommendation. One of the recommendations, which normally is, you need to think about this. They said, you need those kids to go to a program that they have for leadership within culinary. He said they would win the nationals, these kids. They're so impressive with how they handle themselves, how they communicate, the passion that they have for this program, talking about themselves and how they've grown from their freshman year till now. So I'm more than happy to show everything off that we do all the time. I got the best job in the world. I love this.
Sure. I appreciate it. Thank you. And now we will segue into the next agenda item, which is CTE post-graduation data presentation for discussion.
So just to kind of introduce this, this has been a topic that we've been looking forward to discussing for a few months. And I know Mr. Chase had drafted his original presentation, I think, during the summer, and has probably tweaked it a few times.
I've added a lot to this.
To the presentation. And so what we were hoping to do is, and I'm glad this all works out, where you get to walk through the school, you get to see the programs, you get to experience what our students experience when they're in the space. But now Tim's going to share the data behind all of that, because there's two sides to that coin, right? You can have a beautiful space and beautiful equipment, but if your outcomes are not what you want them to be, you're not being successful. At the same point, if you don't have an opportunity to share your outcomes with the folks that are the decision makers in our community, you're also missing an opportunity to impress people, not only with how something looks, but what is happening when kids go through those programs. So I'll just turn it over to Tim. I know he has a lot of slides, but he promised me he'll be able to get through
I
them.
said less than 20 minutes, so hopefully you can read what's on the screen, because I'm not going to read things to you either. I think that's bad practice. So. So the first thing I want to say is that just at our school right now, 7 out of 10 students who enroll here, 70% of our kids are involved in a CTE. They are in a CTE program. So this is a big part of what we do as a school. Okay. So again, as I spoke when we were walking around, the importance of CTE and why it's different than just an elective that you're interested in is these students are earning certifications. These kids are earning licenses. These are learning hands-on opportunities and internships along with the education that they're getting. They're getting college credits along the way. So this is giving them opportunities to be successful immediately out of high school, or if they want to go on to higher education after that. Okay. One of the good things is 80% of our freshmen this year are involved in CTE, so it's growing. I think I had mentioned to everyone while we were walking through that one of the concerns about the future is, will AI be able to replace people in their jobs? And the people that invented AI have been asked about these questions and their fears for the future. And the thing that they all say is, if it is a skill that requires your hands and dexterity, if it requires empathy or understanding and connection with people, you're less likely to be able to be replaced by a computer in the near future. If you think about our CTE programs and you go through there, most or all of those are going to put kids in a position to be able to work longer than some people in other types of professions. And that's kind of interesting thing. And I think that's going to be reflected in the teaching that we're doing at the middle schools and talking to kids about getting involved in CTE, not only because it's something you love, but something you'll be able to do for a long time. And if you look at the participation rate, it's gone up every year as we go. Now, part of this data is a little weird because the grade 12 and the grade 11 students, sometimes we have programs that only go for 3 years. So seniors don't have a 4th year. Sometimes some of the programs are only 2 years. So you don't have people that go beyond those 2 years. So, but overall, again, 70% of our kids, if you're walking down a hallway, pretty much every kid you're walking into is involved in CTE in some way and getting those opportunities. And again, the pathways, there's 13 different programs. So no matter what you're interested in, it's broken into 6 kind of bigger picture categories. So public service and safety, health sciences, hospitality and services, STEM and manufacturing, transportation and business and finance. And those are the things that the state tracks in terms of job opportunities and whether those are high growth, high demand, high skill, high wage. So I broke those down to give you this as we go a little bit forward here. And again, I want to talk about expanding opportunities. This is not tracking. I think historically, when people think about career and technical education, they think, oh, well, that's for the kid who works with their hands, but my very bright student, that's not right for him. That's not going to make it work. Well, the reality is we do have biotechnology. We do have biomedical engineering. My daughter started in law school because she was a criminal justice student. We have 22 AP classes here. We have more AP classes than any public school or private school in Rhode Island. No matter how smart your kid is, capable your kid is, this is a place for them to come and earn lots more opportunities than they would in any of those other environments, because they're going to earn more credits, they're going to learn skills, they're going to connect with something that matters to them, and they're going to find something that they're passionate about and that they love. So by career clusters, when we were talking about those. So in public service, you combine criminal justice and NJROTC, we have 154 students in there, and the Rhode Island growth rate there was stable. It's not expected to go down. It's expected to remain stable. In hospitality services, so culinary and cosmetology, Rhode Island is saying that's going to be a growing thing. Obviously, hospitality is a big thing in Rhode Island, and that's going to continue to be. We all need a haircut, except for me. Transportation, again, stable, so that's your automotive program. Health sciences, a very large growth rate coming up. So our health career, biomed and biotech, it's about a 12% increase that's expected for a need going forward. We have 222 in STEM and manufacturing, so computer IT, engineering, advertising, marketing, design, and welding. That's got a growth rate of about 10% right now. Some of those more than others. I know that Mr. Carr was talking about New England Tech having a 30-year out there plan. New England Tech hired 200 people in Rhode Island last year to be part of their program. Next year, they're predicting to need 300. So our kids, all of our kids who graduate from the welding program, they can walk right into that job at Electric Boat if they want. Business and finance, the Rhode Island growth rate is expected to be about 7.5%. So again, opportunities are there for our kids. And again, as I said, what makes us different than just an elective is certifications and credits and internships and credentials that make a difference when you get out. These are real industry credentials that are nationally recognized, not just a certificate of some kind. College credits to advance you, no matter what program you're going into. Hands-on internship experiences happen in all of our programs. Pathways to being in a career and collaborating with local businesses who work with us to help make our curriculum, but also to hire our kids and to do internships locally. So where do our graduates go? How is it working out for us? Based on last year's, this is based on the data that was given to us by the seniors that was collected. It's not complete, so I didn't have some complete program information at the time. They're gone, so I couldn't go back and ask them. This was before my time, but we can go forward that. So 81% of our welding graduates went directly into the workforce. The others went to college. 100% of our cosmetology graduates received their license. Every single one of them was a licensed cosmetologist at the end of the year. 86% of our biomedical kids are pursuing post-secondary education right now. Some took a gap year. 100% of our advertising, marketing, and design students are continuing in higher education right now. 91% of criminal justice students directly entered the workforce, the military, or are in college right now. You saw the wall of honor in the criminal justice room of our students who are current police officers or correctional officers. 88% of the computer IT and game design graduates are continuing their education. 2 started working right away and making money right off the bat. 93% of our health career graduates are continuing their education right now because they want to be nurses or radiologists or doing something in the medical field. 3 were employed immediately as CNAs, which they all have that certificate by the time they graduate or license. So just some quotes from kids when we were doing this follow-up. They talk about this program gave me confidence to perform skills on real people, health careers graduates. Sometimes the best lesson that you can learn is that you don't want to do a job. You know, there's a joke among the nursing students that, you know, a lot of people think they want to be a nurse until they see blood for the first time, or, you know, a naked elderly person, you know, you never know. So it's one of those things. It's a good way to learn what you don't like and what you do love. I love to get my hands in the shop, automotive student. CT helped me discover I want to be a cybersecurity analyst. Every day in this program taught me something I'll use for the rest of my life, a cosmetology student. These are just quotes that I pulled out from the senior surveys when we got those. Okay. So already this year, we've had more than 20 alumni come back to CTE programs to talk to our kids, to lead little workshops, to work on the video. When you go to our CTE website, there's a video that plays at the top of that website. That was designed by Alexis Shalansky, who graduated 4 years ago. She is a senior at Johnson & Wales in advertising, marketing, and design. I called her when I needed to replace the one that they have. She came in one day. She spent 10 minutes in every program, got great video, and put that together for us. It's going to be the commercial going forward that we put on Cox Cable and YouTube TV. That's going to be the video. She's going to have 30 seconds of that with a voiceover on that. So that's just an example of kids coming back and giving back to us or teaching classes with our kids. Kids describe this as life-changing. When you talk to all of our kids that are seniors, it happened today in culinary a million times, kids talk about this is life-changing. It helped me focus on a career. It helped me become more of a leader. It helped me learn about teamwork and being able to be successful, or that I didn't want to do that and now I do know what I want to do. Again, certifications and credentials. So our students, everything we do is aligned to industry standards, and that's the important thing. The industry, the career people out there, the professionals who are going to hire our kids are the ones who are telling us what to teach and what they need. They're telling us this is what we have to have for your graduates, and that's what we do. That leads to national certifications and credentials that our kids have, that they earn in every program. And the same thing, real world experience. Nothing gives you more experience than being out in the real world, working in that field as an intern. And that's opportunities that we have across the board. For some of our kids come every other day. They work one day because in their senior year, they only need a certain number of courses. So they come for English and PE and the things they need. And then the other day they're working at Electric Boat and they're working, 30 hours a week, making real money. So health careers, get CNA license, URI credits. They intern in nursing homes, medical offices. In welding, OSHA 10 certification, Electric Boat certification, internships. They get at Amtrol and Sanidia and Electric Boat. Culinary, ServSafe, Johnson & Wales credits. The cafe and the Naughty Oak Room are working businesses that kids work in the front of the house and the back of the house and get that experience every day. Computer IT, so CompTIA certification. AP Computer Science is part of that program, URI credits and concurrent enrollment at URI. And Rick now has a cybersecurity program also that we're going to be partnering with as well. And what I'm here to say ultimately is CT here is not a program, it's who we are. This is at the core of who Coventry is and who Coventry High School is. We want our kids to be prepared. We want them to be successful. We want to give them every opportunity we can. And we do that with our programs. So ultimately, when 70% of our kids are telling us something, that's sending us a message that they find a purpose here. They have confidence. They want this opportunity, and it's our responsibility to support that. And I'm here to say, I hope that you continue to support us in what we're doing. And I'm going to do everything I can to give every one of our kids the best of everything and the best opportunities they can get, because that's why I do this job and I love it. And that's it. Did I get in under 20? All right.
Thank you for that presentation. Are there comments, questions from members of the school committee? Member Dos Reis Kuto.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Simple.
Any other comments or questions? I will just say also very impressive. I don't recall seeing the numbers presented quite this way, and it's eye-opening. I didn't realize that number of percentage of our total student population is actually participating in CTs somehow. And I think that speaks volumes into the quality.
My
of
goal
the
is that
program.
it's more than 80% overall 5 years from now, for sure.
That's terrific. That means any student, we offer such a variety of programs and different types of
And we're
skills that any
expanding.
student can get value out of it.
We're
That's terrific.
expanding. Right now, we just got approved for the next step towards the next program that we're developing is a renewable energy program. That's going to be, we're connected with Wind down in North Kingstown, the wind farm down there, URI and some other partners as well. So that's the next step. We're in the final application process for that. And my anticipation is that it's going to go through.
Terrific.
And just to add to that, we're not in the application stage yet, but we're resurrecting our radio station and looking to build out a communications pathway or a CTE program. We're not there yet, but we have 2 radio classes, one each semester. We have a video video production class that's happening. And then we'll probably pair those up with existing courses that are already here at the high school, which are related to communications like journalism and digital marketing, digital communication. And then we also have photography and video programs classes that already exist. So we're also looking forward to eventually getting that to a place where, I've mentioned this before, I talk to alumni, whether it's 5 years ago or 25 years ago, that ask, well, how's that radio station? Do you still have it? And we have a lot of activity in there right now. And I see that being one of the things that we continue to push forward. Matter of fact, Tim, I don't know if you want to talk about it a little bit, but how you used our radio station to help market your open house.
We had students write ads and read them that went out. They were one of the main broadcast ads that were going out during the course of the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. Every day, multiple times a day, 3 different voices, 3 different messages coming from our students, and all different kinds of students who had different kinds of backgrounds. It was really great. The one other program, I mentioned this when we were in cosmetology. My expectation is 2 years from now, we'll have barbering as well as cosmetology as well. It's the other thing I'm also working on I want as many boys coming here for cosmetology, for barbering as possible as well, from in and out of our town.
That's terrific. And since we mentioned the radio station, you have to actually mention how the viewers and public can hear the radio station. What's the frequency?
Oh my gosh, I'll have to think of it. Is it 91.5?
There you go.
91.5. And
FM.
it's FM. And that's important because I think we're the only public school in the state that has an FM frequency. Any other school that has any kind of broadcasting has internet broadcasting. We have a frequency on the FM dial that I think it's strong enough to probably get you all through Coventry. I've picked it up in, I was going to say Hope Valley. I've picked it up in West Warwick and Western Cranston.
It might be a 10,000 watt station, I
Mhm.
believe.
And
And we do have a professional radio station that wants to get in on that frequency. So that may be a partner that we're going to have as we make this from a pathway to a CTE program, have a radio station be one of our partners and one of the people that are help driving our curriculum there too.
yes, an existing established radio frequency that's on air is a fairly hot commodity.
Terrific. Thank you.
There's only so many.
Oh, yeah, member Dos Reis Kuto. and then member Carlo.
Can we make sure that we also focus on girls at barbering?
Of course, yeah.
You said boys, so.
But my cosmetology program is 97% female. So if you want to be a female, my barber, I know what you're going to say,
Just saying.
but my barber is a female barber.
There we
So,
go.
yes.
Member Carlo.
And so is the teacher of the new teacher that I was talking about that came here, who's on all the boards. She's a barber.
So while I meant to mention this earlier, when I was at the open house, there were a couple parents who had mentioned two things. They'd like to see a veterinarian program
Mm,
and a horse program. And I know.
Really
horses-
expensive. And
Yeah, I mean, being in Coventry, and it would make sense. We have such a great area to have such programs, but that were two things that parents were like, veterinarian and horse training are huge in this community. Why not have something? And I meant to bring it up to you and just,
that's a land and money issue that we may not have to be able to do. I share that, but there's also districts very close to us who have veterinary science programs already in place because they don't have a lot of other programs. So they could put all their eggs into that basket.
Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
And now it's the Krista Werner Show. Next item on the agenda, fiscal year 2026, quarter one, year to date. For discussion.
So as Chris makes his way up to the podium, so we've kind of bundled together three topics that are probably going to end up going, back to back to back. So the first one we're going to talk about is our monthly 26 monthly budget update, which is actually a quarterly update. And the way we package that together is we have the information through the end of September. We don't have October numbers yet because we're still in October. What's that? I skipped D, sorry. All right, we back up. Well, that's what I was at, right. So D is the quarter one that we'll go through. E, we're just going to provide you a brief overview of the monthlies for July and August. But you have to know that the one that Chris is going to do first, which is the September one for the quarterly, includes the July and August data.
Okay.
So it's the same data because it gets rolled into every year. So when you talk about how much you've collected in revenue per month or expended out, that gets rolled into the next month. And when you get to the quarterly report, it's a reflection of the prior 2 or 3, 4 months that have already happened. And then we'll talk about how our 25 ended in terms of where we think we finished the fiscal year 25. And then we will do have a conversation about the budget projection, the 5-year budget projection. So we kind of have significant number of financial ones we've got to go through, but I think they kind of all one runs into the other. So the first one is the quarterly report. So Jim, you can bring that up. It's the one I think that says monthly report through 9/30/2025. That's it. If you could just zoom in on the parts Chris needs. Chris, you want to kind of walk them through it?
Sure. Good evening. Sounds like you had a really good CTE tour and discussion. I'm sorry I missed it. I was trying to get in the girls' middle school game. They were playing top-seeded golf middle school, and they beat them 13-0. I just had to throw that in there. So they're on to the third round of the playoffs. So more good news for Coventry. This is what I'm presenting now. Every month we will put together year to date through that month. So, we've prepared the July, August, and then all the way through September. And September really constitutes the first quarter year to date. So I'm going to focus mostly on that as we go through this. But basically, if you look at this, for those of you that aren't familiar, we have the revenues at the top of the top section, and then we have the second table is going to be your expenses, and we're focusing on the columns all the way to the left in gray. That's our current year. We're comparing our budget to our actual, and then what we're projecting going forward. But on the right-hand side with the light blue shading, that's just a comparative, for reference of where we were in the prior year through the same period. So if you look at the third column with numbers, that's our actual fiscal year to date 2026 revenues at the top. We're at about a little over 19.5 million, which is about 23% of the budgeted revenues that we budgeted for this year. And in comparison to last year, as a percentage, 23% was about what we collected at the same period last year. So we're on pace. The local appropriations is exactly a quarter of what we expect. The state aid is a little lower, but that was also the case last year, 20. And that has to do with the fact that the state aid is not linear. It drops over the summer, at the beginning of the summer. So it impacts our cash flow a little bit, but not all schools pay out their employees, the teachers, consistently throughout the year. Some pay them through the school year and then not through the summer. So the state still has that, I guess, mentality on how they divvy up the state aid. So at the beginning of the year, we lag behind and then we collect that. We get caught up through the rest of the year. So I don't see anything, concerning on the revenue side. And then on the expense side, if you just go down that list, we're about just over 16 million in expenses. We're actually a little less than what we had last year through this period. We had about almost 16.3 million in expenses, and we're just under 16.2 million. Last year, that represented about 20% of what we had budgeted, and this year we're at about 19% of what we budgeted. So slightly less, as a percentage. I'm not going to read too much into that right now, but I mean, it's better to be a little under than going over in comparison to the prior year. So, and then finally that there's a line by itself, projected change in surplus. I'll just point that out. If you look at, last year, the actuals, revenue versus expenditures through the first quarter, revenue exceeded expenditures by about 2.6 million. This year through the first quarter, our revenue is exceeding our expenditures by 3.4 million. So, as a dollar amount, we're have a little bit more of a current surplus than we did through this point last year. We're just starting to really, look through the backup behind these reports that's provided for your reference. We have both the revenue report and the expense report sort of summarized with more detail, so you can look through that. We look through it. We'll look for things that as a percentage may be exceeding where a quarter of the year, and we'll ask questions. But we've gone through it, nothing too alarming, but there's, through the natural process of as we go into our budget season, we will look at this and it helps prepare us to do the next year's budget and refine our approach and maybe refine the estimates that we use for the budgets, get a better sense of why something may be trending a little higher or lower than what we may expect. Sometimes when we drill down on some of these things, we also find that not everything is linear, right? Our expenditures aren't always linear. There's some things that are you're going to incur more upfront early in the school year, right? Some of our like curriculum or software, or oftentimes furniture, fixtures, or supplies. A lot of the things are front loaded. All right. So that you may use up a lot of your budget early on in the year. That doesn't mean you're going to blow your budget by the end of the year because they've gotten their orders in early, and you're not really anticipating that they're going to continue at that pace, every month, every quarter after that. So with that, I'll just pause to see if anyone has any questions or comments.
Any comments or questions? I think I see none.
Okay, great. With that, I would just segue into the next, if it's okay to move on to the next one.
So next agenda item is fiscal year 2026 monthly budget update.
Yes.
Okay, for discussion. Thank you.
So the monthly budget update, as Don said, basically the same thing I just reviewed with you. We've prepared for the prior months, right? So we have both July and August. Since those all roll up and are included in the one I just reviewed, I really wasn't going to spend any more time unless anybody has any questions or comments, but those are there. And we have a record now of our monthly reports all the way through September. So.
And I know some of you keep this information and organized in whatever fashion you organize it in. So we didn't want to not give you those monthly reports because they had not been provided before now. So you have, if you're keeping a binder or an electronic folder, you have July, you have August, you have September, and you'll continue to get your monthly reports from here on in. And so they're being provided under this agenda item, just so you have them. But like I said earlier, and Chris just reiterated, those numbers roll up into what he just explained. So I don't know if there's an additional explanation needed. It's more about making sure that you are aware that we're providing you all that documentation for your files. And the public can access these as well, so that if anybody wants to look at them, they can.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the monthly reports? All right, I see none. Thank you for that and keeping us up to date on our records. So we can move on to our next agenda item, fiscal year 2026. We just did that one, sorry. Fiscal year 2025 year-end budget estimate for discussion.
Right. Okay. With that, I'll refer to, I think Jim has it up on, I think you just had it. Is it the seven? I think that might be it, right? Yeah. Or is that?
6:30.
Oh, no. Yep. Sorry.
There's two of them.
It's not an Excel, though. It's like one of those summary reports.
It could be the third one. It might be year 2025, like E. Yeah, it's probably one of those. F, actually. There you go. That's it. All right. Bingo. No worries. It's so with this, what I would just say that I'm happy to be able to deliver some good financial news, right? A lot of what we've discussed in the past we haven't always had the best news to deliver as far as the financial situation, but with 2025, well underway as far as the closing. We've gone through the audit field work. We've really done a lot of the grant closing and cleanup and entries related to the audit. It's not fully closed. We haven't issued an audit report. We haven't actually got our first draft of it yet, but we're wrapping up open items and other discussions with the auditors at this point. So we're feeling a lot more comfortable about where we are as far as the fiscal year 25 numbers. And with that said, we were always aiming to have a surplus of about 140,000, which would represent that the additional funds that the town committed to go towards a deficit reduction. But where we're standing now, we are in excess of that amount. We believe that in addition to the 140,000, we should be able to give just over at least $1 million of a surplus, a little over $1 million of a surplus from fiscal year 25 that goes right towards that deficit to be able to help reduce it, and that will then leave us with less to deal with over the remaining 5 years. Right now, so if you look at the gray tables and you really look at that projected, the second column from the right, the projected revenues, we have our actual results actually in the middle column that says actual revenues and actual expenditures. That's actually what's in our Keystone system right now. So you'll see we have about 81.7 million in revenues and 80.3, almost 80.4 in expenses. But I carry that over to the second to last column on the right where we do projected. So I'm projecting the same revenue. I'm not anticipating any additional revenue. The only real difference there is going to be that last line where it says anticipated transfers and reserve for other pending contingencies. You'll see the difference between actual and the projected is in that bottom number. Instead of 141,000 in the actual, it's up to 474,000 in the projected. The reason that is because, as I mentioned, we're still going through the audit. We're still finalizing some closing. There's some matters pertaining to DCYF and some other discussions that are going on. So it's uncertain if there will be any more closing entries or audit entries. So to sort of provide a buffer in case there is anything, I've built in about $333,000, about $333,000 in there as like a reserve for any potential contingencies, anything that comes up as far as audit entries. That doesn't mean I have any in particular that we are aware of or anything that would actually approach that. I mean, there may be some additional straggling invoices or adjustments, but nothing actually even close to that size that I'm aware of at this point. So if we were to get a call from the auditors tomorrow and say, we're good, we're ready to close at this point, then that, $333,000 could actually come off of those projections and actually could go to further increase, the fiscal year 25 surplus, which would mean further decrease our overall accumulated deficit.
And if you don't mind me jumping in, because I think this is also important. If you wonder how we got to having a surplus, right? How did we get to that place? If you look at Chris's chart and you look at the last column where it talks about the projected revenue variance over under, if you look at just the top part in revenue, you'll see that $140,000, but that was money that we needed to reserve because the town gave it to us towards deficit reduction. But if you look at the third row, which is $208,000 surplus, that's from tuitions, which is pre-K and CTE tuition, and that's an increase. Then if you look at Medicaid, which is something I've talked about probably way more times than you want to hear about, but the reality is we ended up $470,000 above what we budgeted in revenue. And then if you look at the last one, even though it's a little bit smaller, Chris kind of captures everything as other as 77,000. So the bottom line is in revenue alone, we had $895,774 additional to what we anticipated in revenue. And the reason why that's so important is when we first were talking about as a leadership group, how we're going to deal with our deficit 2 years ago, when it became apparent that we knew we were having a problem, and Amy's my witness, we said, we're not going to be able to cut our way out of this problem, right? There's only so much meat on the bone. So we wanted to make sure we address this from both sides of the ledger. We said, we need to increase revenue, decrease expenses. And you will see that the increasing revenue has really been the lion's share of that $1 million that Chris just reported. But the bottom part's also important as well, because our salaries came in under, our employee benefits came in over, our purchase services came in under, our supplies and materials came in under, our furniture and expenditures came in under, our fees and dues came in under. No, our fees and dues came in a little bit over. And if you look at all those things together, and then Chris already talked about, the contingency, you can see as a school district, as an administrative team, team of teachers and all of our employees really made a lot of sacrifices this last fiscal year to put us in a position where we could find ourselves not underfunded, but under budget in a number of different expense categories, which helped us stay where we needed to be. And then that bottom line of $1,025,246 is before the contingency. So like Chris said, if the contingency comes over, that number then goes up to, 1.4, and change.
Yeah, I mean, and when you're dealing with our budget to actuals and our financial reporting, one thing we really want to be is conservative. So that to the extent that you have budget to actual variances, right, you'd like them to go in this direction, right? You'd want to have your revenues come in more than what you budgeted. And that's, with all those positive amounts and the different revenue items, that's what we have. And, if you have budget to actual variances on expenditures, you'd rather them come in less. So, that's what we're hoping for. That's what we worked for, and everybody's worked for, and that's what we're realizing with these preliminary. I'm saying preliminary, but we're pretty far along in the audit process. So as we keep moving forward, we're more and more confident in these, and hopefully we'll be back with even better news the next time we update them with issued financials.
So the last thing before you guys ask any questions or comments is that when we get to the next agenda item, which is the 5-year projection, Chris has been able to take this number, this information, and put that into our 5-year projection, so you can see the significant impact of coming in with a surplus of $1 million, because we have a $5.8 million deficit that just went down to a $4.8 million deficit, right? $1 million surplus goes towards deficit reduction. And so we have a 5-year plan we need to work on to get even, and we have $1 million head start because we were able to tighten our belts and end up with a surplus. And I think that's significant because you'll see in his 5-year projection how that impacts the bottom line in terms of how we get out of the hole that had been accumulated over a number of years. I just wanted to make sure we don't lose track of the impact of when you do the work that we did and you get the results that we got, which I think are amazing. You can't lose track of the impact of that result on us achieving our goals. And I just want to make sure we keep our eye on that.
Thank you. Any comments, questions from members of the committee? Member Mayor.
It's great news that we're looking at that much of a surplus. And I have another question about it, but I'm going to save it for the next agenda item. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I will say thank you and I was going to say congratulations. I'm not sure that's the right word, but thank you for all the hard work that's been put in over the past year and a half, 2 years. Once we identified we were having an accumulated deficit, what the public probably doesn't realize is how much hard work has been done behind the scenes to really straighten things out and get the house in order through policy and putting in accounting best practices and doing our accounting in different ways to make sure we're approaching this more soundly. And the results do speak for themselves, but that's not going to stop me from blasting this all over social media that we've done the right thing here. We are projecting a surplus. We are going to be able to pay down this deficit hopefully quicker than maybe expected, because we had a good year and anticipate years to follow. We'll do the same as we'll get into the next agenda item. So thank you, Mr. Coward. Thank you, Chris, everyone else on your teams involved in accomplishing this. It's huge. And I hope the public and the council on the town side really appreciates the work that's been done to get us to this point. So thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Moving on to the next agenda item. Chris, you're not off the hook yet. Is the 5-year budget projection for discussion and vote.
So just to come right out of the gate with some context of what you're going to see is you've seen our 5-year budget projection probably 3 different times. You saw it in July, you probably saw it in August. I think we might have talked about it in September. And the whole time we've had the negotiated rates of the contract that the teachers agreed to, that we agreed to, and we're just waiting now for the town council to do their part. That 5-year projection with those percent increases has been presented to you before. It's going to be presented to you again tonight because we have some new data to put into that spreadsheet. In addition to that, I had Chris do a second 5-year projection with 2% flat increases for those 3 years instead of the 1%, the 2, and the 1.75 that we negotiated, so that the committee can see the difference between what a 2% flat increase over 3 years versus what we negotiated looks like in terms of the bottom line impact on our deficit reduction strategy. And 2 is like the middle, right? It's kind of like the middle of the road. If we end up negotiating again, it could be higher than 2. It could be lower than 2. I don't know what it's going to be because we're not negotiating, but we had to give you sort of like a flat sort of like place to compare against. If there's an ask to come in higher, because we think, it's going to be, a little bit more of an impact than what we're estimating now as a baseline, we obviously can do that as well. So I'll turn it over to Chris. Maybe you can start, Chris, with the original one, and then
Yeah.
you can do the second one, and just make sure when you do your walkthrough that we spend some time at the bottom.
Yep.
And you can kind of show them where that deficit reduction is and where that $1 million surplus hits.
Yeah, just to set the stage and refresh everybody's memory, we've done different versions of the 5-year projection over time, but the most recent was over the summer. And so I'm going to start with what we call in version 1, which was what we last presented back in July. And that's what you're looking at right now. So what's notable on this is it's a 5-year project. We're calling it a 5-year projection, right? It's got the current fiscal year 2026 as the second column in blue, going out to fiscal year 2030. But before that, those 5 years, we really actually have a starting year before that, which is the first column, fiscal year 25. We have prior versions of the 5-year projection have all worked with operating under fiscal year 25 using the budgeted amount, since we seemed like we were at least on pace to live within our budget for fiscal year 25. So that whole column, you'll see it's labeled budget for fiscal year 25. So all those numbers were not actual, they were actually the budgeted amounts. And then everything else was forecasted also using the budget for fiscal year 26, and then projecting out in 27, 28, and 29 based on the proposed contract that Don just referred to with the 1%, 2%, and 1.75% teachers' raises. And so if you scroll down, Jim, and you can go ahead and go really to the bottom, I guess, of this section here. So it's really where it summarizes it. You'll see the total expenses, other uses. That, I guess that's pinkish purple. I don't know what color that is, but it says appropriation of fund balance. You'll see it starts with 140, which is what we were budgeting to go towards actually it's the accumulated deficit, 140,000 to pay that down. And then the additional amounts after there, we were budgeting out over $1 million every year to pay down that deficit over the 5 years until you got out, until you got out into the final year where we switch from that bottom green line being all negative numbers. Now, it brings us at least as far as what we're projecting out into eventually back into having a fund balance, having an overall surplus. So that's where we started. That's why this is version 1. It was all based on FY25's budget and FY26's budget, and then our forecast on that proposed teacher's contract. So what we've done now is basically said, okay, well, let's take that same scenario where we're referring to the same proposed teacher's contract increases. But let's refresh this for the fact that we're pretty far along now with closing fiscal year 25, close to completing the audit. And we've now created what I call version 1.1. So it's basically the same thing now updated, as of now, with our best preliminary, not final, but preliminary fiscal year 25 results. So if you want to, Jim, if you're able to get, I don't know if you're in it, there's a version 1.1, looks just like this. Yep. While he looks for it, I guess the important thing is everything we just talked about in the fiscal year, in the FY25 update that I just talked about, we've now put into this 5-year projection. So that first column has all been updated. And what that really does it gets us a head start, right? It's now, instead of that, that larger accumulated deficit of, getting close to 6 million, what was it, 5.8, 5.9 million. Because of the results that we're anticipating from FY 25, we've already taken a decent sized chunk out of that overall accumulated deficit. So now when we're really looking at 5 years, we've got a head start, and that's a good thing. So, ultimately, the other numbers really didn't change much. I didn't change too much to the projection. There were a couple, small modifications, but not much to the future years. Really, it's just updating for actual 25 results. And what it will show, if you're looking at it, it gets us out of that deficit earlier, right? We don't have to wait all the way. We don't have to go that far out to get to dig ourselves out of the deficit in this projection. It looks like we would be able to get out of it in fiscal year 2029. Now, of course, it's hard enough to budget 1 year out. So when you're budgeting 5 or 6 years out, there's a lot of things that could change, right? So this is not a guarantee or anything. This is something that would have to be monitored and constantly adjusted and revisited. But at least where we are now, because we have a better starting point, we should get out of it earlier with the same scenario of that proposed teacher's contract. Is this it now?
Yeah, and I have a pointer so that
You can highlight that
I don't know if
last, that bottom row right there. There you go. That bottom row is really what is happening to the accumulated deficit over time, right? We're anticipating at the end of 25, when this audit is issued, instead of that 5.8, 5.9 million, right? We're gonna be at more like 4.8 or so, or potentially, we'll see where the final numbers come when.
But I think it's also important to know you see in the third column from the right that if everything stays as is, we get out of the deficit position that year, right? Is that the year we get out where you see?
Yeah, where it starts to go positive. So that would be fiscal year 29, where it becomes all of a sudden there's no more negative numbers, because the year before was about a negative 1.2 million. And then it's just positive, about $38,000. Now, again, caution, that's good. But again, all these numbers, when we've gone through the budgeting process, everything's been tight, right? We've tightened the belt as much as you can. Things don't go according to plan. There's not a lot of wiggle room. So I would not, suggest we just go spending all that money right away. We want to stay on track. But it is good news to have a head start because of the results from 25.
But it's important to know, and you'll see this when we bring up the next version, that if you just use this for what it is, which is a projection based on estimated information, we with the negotiated contract, we move into a positive position in fiscal year 29. If you show them the next one, Jim, I don't know if you got that one.
Yeah, so the final one was going to be that version, what I call version 2. So version 2, like Don referenced, is it was asked to basically so the change you'll have in version 2 is the same changes I made to version 1.1, right? I also updated it for the same preliminary fiscal year 25 results that had showing at this moment a surplus that can help us have a smaller accumulated deficit as we roll into 26. But what we did is we said, okay, for those 3 years that are not under contract right now, FY 27 through FY 29, instead of the proposed teacher's contract that's on the table, it was going to be a flat 2%, right? So we went back and reworked those numbers. Obviously, if you now 2% in the first year versus it was 1%, it builds upon it. So now even though you're still at 2% in the second year under the scenario, that 2% is higher because it's building off of a higher increase in the previous year. And, as you go down, basically it's more expensive under this scenario, under version 2. So you're not getting out quite so fast with all the other variables, the same. So you'll see we do, we can project ourselves. We can give ourselves a 5-year where we can get out of it if everything holds steady. But it takes all the way through the final year of it to get through it. So.
And the reason why that's important is if you have to go through the whole 5 years and you don't get the benefit of stopping in the 4th year, then the $1 million appropriation that's coming from our budget, not the town's part, our part, we're appropriating $1 million towards fund the deficit reduction. That 5th year has to go towards deficit reduction. If we were to go with the contract that we negotiated, that $1 million goes back into our budget. Like that becomes money that we use for teaching and learning, right? So it's not just, well, it's great, we'll finish a year earlier and we won't have to deal with this deficit. It's also the money that we're earmarking every single year to pay for this deficit goes back into our budget. It's $1 million. And the money that the town is giving us, whatever the percent is not partially also for deficit reduction, because that's where we're at right now. They give us some for operation and some for deficit reduction. So I wanted to make a point of saying, even if you just go to 2%, it's a significant impact on us long-term, even if the numbers are estimation based on, unknown variables.
Yeah, and the best way to probably see that is if you focus your attention on the dark green row, right? The third from the last row, because under version one that we presented in July, basically that's zeros, until you get out to the final year, right? That's going to be, we have the amounts in pink or purple above that we're committing to put towards the deficit, and then after that, we were left with 0 in that row in the original version. Now in this version, because we've gone to doing it under a 2%, 2%, you'll see that there's negative amounts in that dark green, and that just basically represents the delta, the change that we had from the prior version, so that it's more costly. And you'll see, roughly 300,000, 325,000, and 429,000 roughly over those 3 years of the unknown contract period.
So this item is a discussion and vote. And so after your discussion, we have to vote. We could vote on the 5-year version 1, which is, the 1.1, which is the version that has the teacher raises in it, in a hope that goes through the town and we are able to kind of ratify and move forward. And use the version 2 as a comparison context that if we're not able to move forward, that's going to be where we come back, or we're going to come back higher. But it's really not my decision, right? It's that I'm at the pleasure of the committee. I'm just saying this is a discussion and vote.
Thank you. And could you also comment on the timing of why we're doing this at the end of October?
Yeah, and it's actually it's interesting. Our charter requires that we do. The original charter says we do, I think, a 3-year projection, but the state requires a 5-year projection. The state's requirement is actually that the 5-year projection is done in June at the end of the fiscal year. So we did a 5-year projection at the end of June to meet that state requirement. And that's the one that we've now brought back and forth in front of you a few times. But we also have this charter requirement of having a projection presented, because in December, which is not that far off, we're going to be doing a joint meeting, and we're going to be meeting with the town to talk about where we think this next budget season is going to go. And this vote is to meet the requirement by charter to make sure we have a projection that's been voted on by the committee. But at any point, by the request of the chair or anybody through the chair, if you want us to bring it back with a different scenario, we can do that as well.
Thank you. That's more clear. Any comments or questions by members of the committee? Member Mayor.
One quick question and then a more complicated question. So any surplus has to go directly towards the deficit, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So my next question is, the healthcare savings, when we switched, are we holding that back in case this contract thing goes sideways and that something doesn't happen on the town side that should? Or is that built into the appropriation numbers in the 5-year projection?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I'll give you like the basic answer, and then if you need more detail, Chris can give you a deeper answer. Those healthcare savings live in two different categories, right? There's the savings that we got based on the changing cost of the premiums that are built in, right? When we went over to the Caremark plan with the trust, that plan was cheaper than the plan we had before. And so when we put our budget together, that savings was built in. The additional savings is what is in the reserve accounts, right? And the reserve accounts have to be run out before you can use them for anything or look at them. And we haven't gotten the report back from our prior healthcare manager with the run out number. Like there's still some mathematics that needs to go towards that. So that reserve funds are not in this at all. So that would be, whatever that would be on top of all of this, right? So we're not holding it back for any particular reason. We actually don't have it yet. We don't know what it is, but it could come in a few different shapes and forms. Like there is rebate opportunities based on the plan we were at before. So there's rebate money that exists. And then we have Delta dental. So we have a dental reserve account, and then we have a health reserve account, and then we have a Blue Cross Blue Shield reserve account. And so when those reserve accounts are finalized and we know what those balances are, then we'll be able to kind of give you a better idea of what those are and what we can apply towards the 5-year projection. Does that make sense?
Yep. And so I was just concerned about the unbudgeted out-of-pocket costs as part of the arbitration.
Mhm.
And then if we end up paying more for the contracts, right, would that all go towards the deficit, or could we hold that back to help offset those unbudgeted increases?
Yeah, and I guess I would say that we have to operate, right? So if we have operational expenses, we have to operate, right? And anything that's left over after we operate is surplus. Does that sound right, Chris? Like we have to operate. And so if there are expenses that we take on during the course of the year due to whatever decisions or things that happen, those are all operating costs. So they would impact whatever potential surplus that we would have at the end of 26.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Member Dos Reis Kuto.
Do we also plan, and maybe you've already said this, where we try to build for contingency in case of those unexpected expenses come, like a reserve, so that we can somehow have that little pool of money so that if unforeseen expenses come through, we're ready. I mean, we're never really ready, right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes unforeseen can cost
Mhm.
money that we,
Right. So it doesn't sit in like a slush fund, like an account, like on the side. What Chris does and what our principals do and administrators do it lives in each line, right? So we look at our expenses in any category and we look at what it's been over the last 3 years. And then we decide how much we're going to expend or budget for this year. And then we may calculate a buffer, right? So I'll give a good example. Students go out of district for tuition. We know what the tuition is going to cost, but we might build in a buffer because something might happen during the year. He might do a 3% buffer on that line. So whatever contingency that is built in at the line level, not
So it's
necessarily as a bucket of money sitting on the
so
side.
it's already in,
Where
although we might not see it on a line item if
Mhm.
you're reading it, not part
Right.
you understand, we would understand that
It's built into it, but I don't want to be, I don't want people to be confused why I was saying, it's not like a ton, right?
No, I understand.
We're
but-
building it in to have some, I think, maybe utilities is a good example.
Yeah, so I mean, we're trying to, our budgeting process, we're overall trying to be conservative and realistic, right? But we don't have the luxury of just overestimating everything. It's a balancing act. But the better we do with realistic budgeting or trying to make sure we have enough in there, the more likely we'll be able to come in, with a surplus that can at this point go towards the accumulated deficit. Over time, you get out of the deficit, it starts to build up a fund balance, right? So at one point in time, Coventry was sitting with fund balance. You like to keep that and not exhaust it, which is what happened, and we got into a situation where we've got a large accumulated deficit. But as if you can get out of the accumulated deficit and then have years where you live within your budget and maybe have surpluses at the end of the year, it sort of builds up a fund balance, which isn't a bad thing, because it would help your overall, ideally it would help your overall cash flow, right? If you're bringing in more than you're expending, eventually your bank account, unless you're investing and you're spending that on some fixed assets or something like that, you'd have more in your bank account to be able to, and you'd have a fund balance that if you have unexpected things come up, you could, you'd be able to react and
Okay.
be able to pay for them. I think one other thing I probably would mention here that's not a bad thing is that, to the extent that the town may be able to, is contributing towards a certain amount each year that's set aside, that's supposed to go to the accumulated deficit, at some point, if they're in the habit of that could hopefully be something that could continue in some form, but be designated for the capital, something like that, because that's overall been an unfunded, something that's just not been funded well. People, would kick the can down the road, and then you end up with
Understood.
costs down the road. So.
Thank you.
And just kind of add to that, what some other districts have done when they've gotten into that positive position and they've had that capital reserve fund, they then use that to pay for projects that qualify for housing aid, which you get for us, it would be like a 49% reimbursement. So for every dollar you spend, you actually get 50 cents back from the state. And so like a community like Lincoln, who we've talked to their school committee member a few times, is they've built a fund based on a town's commitment to capital improvement that then has been almost a 2-for-1, because every time they expend something, housing aid comes back and replenishes at least some of what's been put out, so that they are maximizing their dollars beyond just what the face value is.
I'm just asking that question just so that we all understand that if it's built in, that's great, and puts us in a vision for the plan for the future once we have this deficit reduced, right? To put us in a better place so that we never fall back on what we have been in the last 5 years. Thank you very much for the explanation.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? My only comment is, as we move forward, my comment is for the committee. So to be clear, we have two different versions of the 5-year projection on the table. One assumes that the council will pass the contract. The other assumes the council will not pass the contract. These 5-year projections are what we will be presenting to the council, maybe with additional information, of course, but presenting to the council and the public in December, saying, here's what we're projecting based on that particular action. So the motion will need to be, are we moving to approve version 1.1, which assumes the contract will pass, or version 2, which assumes the contract will not pass? So I will entertain a motion if someone's willing to make one. Or is there further discussion? Member Mayor. Yeah.
Will we be able to present both of those to the town council, no matter what we approve at that budget meeting with them, if they haven't passed it by then?
Good scenario. And I would assume yes. So like for two scenarios, if we decide to pass 1.1, assuming that the contract passes because the council takes action before December, then we're really only talking about 1 5-year projection. If we pass version 2, and the council approves the contract, maybe we'll have to do another vote to give them a revision. But if the council does not act by December, whatever is going to be put on the table will have to be clear that here's what would happen if the contract is ratified. Sorry, and here's what would happen if the contract is not ratified. And in my opinion, which is clearly my opinion, if the council balks at us, having this deficit wiped out a year earlier at $1 million, then really they just don't belong in their positions. So I really think they should have an appetite to move on that contract. Hopefully with the new leadership and the new energy that the council is bringing forward, they will be willing to act. We'll see. So the long answer to your question, yeah, whatever the outcome is, we're going to have to give them the official 5-year projection that we vote on, and potentially some other scenarios that are happening for sure.
Thank you.
Member Carlo.
Obviously, we all know that the town council is going through new changes, people coming in, leaving. They're going through quite a bit. My only concern is that this contract is kind of like at the bottom of their concern with what's happening on the council at the moment. Not that it's their fault, but just with everything that's happening. I guess for me personally, I would go with the worst case scenario just to prepare us rather than hope they do and pass it. So for me, I just think if we prepare for the worst and get the best, for me, that makes me feel better.
And don't forget, this is only a projection. This is not budgeting. So we're just presenting to them what we expect our 5. The purpose of these projections is so that we can plan. We put 5-year projections together. So not only do we know what's coming up this year, we actually know what's coming up this year, last year, but we can start adjusting our spending and adjusting our budget to prepare for next year and potentially the year after. That's the purpose of these 5-year projections. It's really to get ahead of the game, and as much as is possible in a government body that relies on annual budgeting, and it makes it difficult to do 5-year planning. We are trying to do these 5-year plannings. When it comes to actual brass tacks and we get down to budget season, the status of the contract ratification will come into full effect. The goal for December is we want something accurate on the table. We also want to tell the council exactly what the consequences of their actions. If they don't move on the contract, here's how much it's going to cost. And we're going to tell every taxpayer and every voter that, and I plan to canvass some neighborhoods if I have to, saying, hey, here's what your council person just cost this town because they didn't do their job. Rightly so. If they do their job, I'll probably have to eat my words and go support some people who might need some help in the next campaign cycle. So I'm willing to do both. I hope they're listening. There's a bunch of people on Zoom. Maybe they are. So anyway, I will entertain a motion either way. I personally don't have a preference at this time, because I do think we are going to present both sets of numbers in December if the council doesn't act. It's just which numbers are we going to officially adopt today? So again, waiting for a motion. Unless there's further questions. Member Giaconi.
Dumb question, but if we're going to show them both, can't we make a motion to have them both?
I think we can only officially adopt 1-year, 5-year projection.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, by law. So one of them we have to adopt is our official 5-year projection.
Because I believe it also has to go to the state.
Yes. Yeah,
So we can vote for one, but we're going to present both.
potentially.
Okay.
Potentially. Again, it all depends on what happens between now and then. So we have a month and a half before, maybe 2 months. No, month and a half. It's October 23rd. So everyone started their holiday shopping. So we have a month and a half. A lot could happen then. And as member Carlo pointed out, this could be at the bottom of their priority list. I intend to make this at the top of their priority list. So we'll see what happens.
And this is something we're doing because of the state.
Right, there are state and town requirements that say we must adopt a 5-year projection and we must present it to the council, the town, by November 1st. State law says June, so the state law and the charter are in conflict. So again, we adopted a 5-year projection in June to meet state law. Now we're meeting the charter requirements, revising the numbers based on new information and giving the most accurate information we can to the council, which they deserve. They deserve to know what we're projecting out for the next 5 years. Comments or questions? Member Mayor again.
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to be an optimist and make a motion to approve version 1.1 5-year budget projection.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries 6-0. But be ready to talk about version 2. I hope not. I hope not.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much. Yes. Next item on the agenda is item H, NJROTC field trip to New Hampshire for discussion and vote.
Yeah, pretty simple. Our NJROTC is well-traveled. They travel all over the Northeast to compete, and they are heading to Dover, New Hampshire. It's being funded through their booster group, and it's just a one-day trip, but it's outside of our 100-mile rule and requires school committee approval for them to attend.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the field trip? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the NJROTC field trip?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the NJROTC field trip to New Hampshire.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is Title IX policy, first reading for discussion and vote.
Yes, so this is on your agenda tonight because just to kind of remind everyone, we had a civil rights review of our CTE program back in the spring. I'm sure you recall that. We talked about it a little bit. And they had really great feedback for us. They thought we had all the components of a program that provides equal opportunity for people to participate. But when they did their review, they look at all our documents. They look at how we do 504s, how we do Title IX, how we do all things related to providing the structure for students to be able to have equal access. And one of the things that they required us to do is to add one bullet to our grievance procedure section of our policy. And so the bullet is highlighted in yellow. And this language actually came from the state. So we didn't make this up. They said, please add this language to your policy. The language reads, no information protected by a legal privilege such as attorney-client privilege or doctor-patient privilege can be used during an investigation unless the person holding that privilege has waived it. And so it just basically protects the person by making sure that we respect any attorney-client or doctor-client privilege that may be in place and that it cannot be part of something unless they've given us permission to do that.
Thank you. Good explanation. Any comments or questions on the policy? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the first reading?
I make a motion to approve the Title IX policy first reading.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is item J, student dress code, JICA, for second reading, discussion and vote.
Sure. If you recall, it's been a little while since you looked at this one, but if you open it up, it's letter D. I put a little red star there, and we had just updated some language giving more guidance on how students should dress in school and, what's acceptable in our school in terms of, and I can read it to you. It talks about students shall not wear attire or grooming depicting any kind of advocating violence or criminal activity, gang-related activity. It talks about not wearing face paint during school day unless it's approved by it's an approved school-sponsored event. It talks about not wearing hairstyles or accessories or grooming styles, costumes, or other clothing meant to attract attention that substantially disrupts school learning. And any exceptions for B and C may be made by the building administrator for school-sponsored events. So just a refresher of where we were when we had the first reading.
Thank you. Good summary. Any comments or questions on the policy? Member Jaffe.
This is for K through 12, or is this just high school?
It's a district policy, so it's K-12, but some of the language that is really geared towards secondary, because that's where we've had some of the challenges that fall under this revision.
Member Carlo.
Don, on the first page, it says, letter C, shall not wear hats, and then letter D, high school may wear hats. Is there a reason why one can, one can't?
Yeah, so this was probably 2020, maybe 2019, and it was somewhere on that point. The high school administration came to us and they said that the hat rule was very challenging to enforce, and that they actually felt that it gave kids an opportunity to sort of be comfortable in school without having to worry about I don't guess the word I'm looking for. Like they felt comfortable in school wearing their hats, and they liked wearing their hats. The administration wanted to kind of embrace that and encourage kids to do it as long as it was done in a way that was not causing a disruption. And so the committee at that time voted to approve that.
Does it ever take away from like how you can see their faces on cameras from anything if they do disruption?
I would ask the high school admin that question, but I will say if something rises to a level where they're using cameras and they can't identify somebody, there's usually other ways to identify people besides just what's on a camera.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's a significant issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Member Cambio.
Thank you. I was just looking at the philosophy section again. I'd like to see you go back to the policy meeting and have the sentence that says the school committee supports a gender neutral dress code that does not depend on a student's gender or identity. My feeling is that it's just making a provision for gender confusion, if you will. So I'm just not comfortable with keeping that in there. I don't know if we can go back to the policy meeting before we vote, but that's my feeling on it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. At the time that language was written, it might have been a different intention there. What the intention at the time this was written was there was a lot of outcry that girls and boys were treated very differently in the dress code. And at some level, it was true. There was language in the old dress code policy that said, girls cannot wear spaghetti straps or something like that. But so there was applications applied to boys differently than applied to girls. So the policy was rewritten in such a way that the language in here applies to all students. There is no distinction on whether it's a boy or a girl. In how this applies, it's applied evenly to everyone. So we don't have different rules for girls. We don't have different rules for boys or anyone else. Any other comments or questions? Member Jack voting.
I just wanted to be clear, we're voting on tonight just D, correct? Where it's There's the asterisk.
Well, technically, you're voting on the whole policy to move it through the second reading, which effectively passes the policy and makes it live. D is highlighted because that was the only language that was changed from the previous version. Any other comments or questions? All right, is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve student dress code JICA dash second reading.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 5-1. Next item on the agenda is superintendent report, 1 CTE open house, 2 gym grand reopening, 3 Western Elementary water update, and 4 update from the Auditor General.
Okay, so we're kind of CTing you to death tonight and CTE, and I appreciate you kind of hanging in, and I wish Tim was still here so I can say thank you and congratulations to him again in person. But if you were able to attend the CTE open house, I know we give a lot of feedback to our director about how he can do things, or even when Lori was here, how she could do things. But many of the suggestions that have been made over the last few years were definitely embedded in his presentation, in his program. Amy and I sat next to each other, and we both looked at each other about 10 minutes into it and said, holy cow, there was a lot of people here. The parking lot was full. The auditorium was full. The students who presented for each program did a phenomenal job. Tim did a great job structuring it. I stayed pretty much the whole night. I left just before the parents so I can get out of here without having to sit here too long. And I will say that everybody seemed really, really engaged. And so I just wanted to congratulate Tim. He gave you some numbers earlier about how many people registered, how many people attended, which community, how many communities he saw registrations from. And I don't know if he included in his talking that he already has 125 applications, and it's October. So that's significant. That's a successful CTE open house. So I just wanted to reiterate and congratulate Tim for, and it's his first one that he's running as a director. So I have to say he did a fine job. In terms of the gym reopening, I know some of you were able to attend, some were not, but this past, I guess it was last Friday, we did a reopening of our high school gym, like a ribbon cutting. We had a volleyball game. We had some parents. We had some folks from the press. We had dignitaries from the town, the state, and the school department. And it was a short 15-minute program, but I think being the person who did most of the talking, my focus was to celebrate what we have done, to have pride in what we have done, and to make sure we don't forget how important it is to work together for our community to be successful. And so I thank everybody who came. I want to thank you all for your support. I also, even though people are not all here, the building committee has been in place for quite a bit of time, and they've been hard workers, and I want to make sure that they get congratulated as well. And then the next thing has to do with the Western Well. Unfortunately, this is a topic that comes up periodically, especially this time of year. While I was out, or just when I came back, there was a high level of manganese, same issue we had before. This is going to keep happening until we replace that well, which is going to happen. And so Kristen Bagley, the principal, handled it really well. She, got the information that was required from DOH. It was posted, it was shared. All the requirements were met. And I don't know if we are back online or not. I'll have to double check on that. I don't know if Amy has heard. I don't think we are. Usually we get a notification from DOH that it's okay to resume. We don't drink the water out of the fountains there. We have water bottles, and kids bring in their water because it's been so on and off and problematic. They all have their system. That's why it's another reason it's important to get that water that well done. It's not that the water is not safe when the manganese levels are appropriate. It's just that it's consistently varying in and quality, and we just want to make sure the kids have the best drinking water available. And then I did provide you all, I believe, some notes from the Auditor General's meeting. I'm not sure if I was able to talk to the entire committee about this or mention it in public, but our last Auditor General meeting, we had a good update. We talked about our fiscal 25 closeout, with what Chris talked about tonight, and our potential surplus of over $1 million. We talked about the different surplus strategies. We talked a lot about them tonight, but we did have a spending freeze. I think we had 3 years of spending freezes. Unfortunately, we had some layoffs and some vacant positions that were not filled. Or if we brought somebody in to replace a retirement, we were able to bring somebody in at a lower rate. And then other cost saving measures to kind of get us to the place where we had that surplus. In terms of the contract, we just talked about it on that 5-year projection vote. The town's still reviewing the financials. They don't seem to be in a rush to finalize. I think they really want to see how 25 ends, but now that we have this report back out, I'm hoping that it will turn things around. The council, these are not my words, their words, the council has been in turmoil, so it's delayed some of their priorities. And the town manager did acknowledge that the negotiated raises were favorable. He didn't say they were bad. He just said that, they are still going through their review. We will be submitting our 5-year deficit reduction plan to the Auditor General. He doesn't seem to be putting a lot of pressure on us because he wants to make sure it's reflective of what we think is going to happen. We also know that we have a potential for another 30 plus retirements this coming year. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing for the people who have dedicated their lives to our district in their professional roles and are able to retire. It's a good thing for the district because, those are usually our highest salary people. And if there's an opportunity to replace them with a lower salary person, obviously there's some savings there. But there's also the other element that people sometimes forget is, we're not the only district that's going to have retirements. They're going to be happening all over the state. And I don't know if there's enough teachers out there to be able to backfill those vacancies for the entire state. And I think there's going to be some changes on how people get certified in the state. There needs to be, otherwise we're all going to be scrambling for the same small pool of people. And our next meeting is scheduled for November 10th. So I will take questions on any of those 4 items.
Comments or questions for the superintendent? I have a question. So now that the town has straightened things out regarding late audits and we're finally getting a handle on 5 deficit reduction plan, does that change the frequency of the meetings you have with the Auditor General? Because I know you've been meeting with him on a pretty regular basis.
They have not changed. I predict they will change once that 5-year plan is finalized, once 25 audit is done. By the way, if the 25 audit is done, completely done and approved by the end of November, we're going to be one of the first districts, one of the first communities to have their audit done in a timely fashion. So it's kind of like our gym, right? We went from one of the worst to one of the best. We're going to go from one of the worst communities that was backed up, 2 or 3 years in audits to a community that has caught up and now is one of the first communities to get it done. So that's our goal. Get the deficit reduction plan done. And then I do see the frequency being less often because unfortunately we're not the only district in the state dealing with deficits, and the Auditor General is attending to many different municipalities and communities with similar issues as we have.
Yeah, and kudos out to the town side as well. If we get our audit completed by the end of the year, it'll be the first time the audit has been completed on time in Coventry in I don't know how long. I don't remember it ever being on time since I've been elected, but my memory could be a little rusty. But it has been many years. So kudos again to Chris and you and the town side and getting that work done. And looks like we're on track. Because the audit becomes very important in our budgeting process. If we identify any material weaknesses or other areas of concern, it's important to have that input into the process.
It's part of why we end up in a deficit in the first place. When you're budgeting without having closed out the prior years, you don't know where your foundation is, right? You don't have your audited financials done. So 22, 23, 24, they all weren't done. But we were still, as a municipality and school department, creating budgets. And that's when we started, finding errors, right? As these audits started coming through, we started finding errors, which now become accumulated and create the situation. Right? I mean, it's really common sense when you look at how it all happened. But I think there's some practices in place now that should hopefully stop that from happening again.
Thank you. Moving on, next agenda item is citizens' comments. If anyone gathered here today would like to speak, please step up to the podium, state your first and last name and address for the record. And I'm seeing no takers in the room, so we will move to Zoom. If anyone on Zoom would like to speak during citizens' comments, please raise your hand and wait to be called on. Going once, twice, and citizens' comments is closed. Next item is scheduling of the next meeting. Is there a motion to schedule the next meeting?
I make a motion to schedule the next meeting for November 13th in Coventry Schools Administration Office.
Second.
All in favor? Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And is there a motion to adjourn at 8:43 PM?
I make a motion to adjourn at 8:43 PM.
All in favor? Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, everyone.